This conference will now be recorded.
With teams working on certain parts, team 5, you will start this problem off doing what you're doing today. You will get that done correctly sometime today, and then you will send your results to team 3. Team 3 will do the stage 1 journal entries. For the stage 2 journal, then you send yours on to teams 7 and 9. They're going to do the stage 2 journal entries. So that's team 7 and team 9. Team 4 is doing the stage 3 journal entries, the hard journal entry. Then stage 4 is being done by team 6. Stage 5 journal entries are being done by team 2. Making journal entries, you post them into the T accounts also, so you can get your trial balance done. So we'll let team 4 finish up that trial balance after y'all get all of those things done. Team 8, you got the cost of goods manufacturer statement. Team 4, you got the cost of goods sold statement. Team 6, you got the income statement. This should be an assignment. So now you know what you got to do. You know what you need to pay attention to today. That's a team, 15 points. I just want one submission, but you're going to be presenting it. And the main thing is you got to present it and get it up here correctly. And you know the drill, I'm taking off a point for everything I see wrong. So there's 1 grade for the whole class.
You didn't mention team 1.
Did I not mention team 1?
No.
I don't have it on here, but team 1, you have to trial balance.
About team 5.
So what?
What about team 5?
Yeah, you could give them one of our problems or something, because you seem to have given team 4 like a whole lot. And I don't know.
I don't know, but they said they were students. So team 5 has a trial balance. What other team?
Team 1.
Wait a minute, excuse me. Team 1 has a trial balance, excuse me. What other team was missing?
Did you say anything for team 2, Dr. Boyd?
Let me see. Team 2 has stage 5, selling administrative expenses and dividends.
What did team 5 have again? I'm sorry.
It's in assignments. Team 5 starts us off with what we did today. So team 5, nobody else is going to do this, and you're going to send this forward. So nobody else works on this, just Team 5, and they send it forward. So our journal entries will be dependent on Team 5's work. Got it? Team 5, y'all up to the challenge?
I'm gonna pray that we do it.
My stuff hurt.
So half those journal entries will be based on Team 5's work.
I feel like that wasn't a coincidence, but
What?
When is this due? Is this next class or something?
Next class period. You felt it wasn't a coincidence. I tell you, you know, I try to give them
no, Caleb, stop.
yes, something we definitely know today. There'll be no excuse. It'd be fresh on their mind. It wouldn't be new stuff like other people. But you want some new stuff that we're just going over today?
Nah, Mr. Boy, it's cool. I just feel like that wasn't no coincidence. I don't know where it's on Team 5 Mac.
Mr. Flakes.
Let's just put it all on my back once again, but I got the monkey off my back, now you put it back on my shit. I'm like, wow.
Hey man, at least you ain't got two parts.
Facts.
Right.
That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, wait, how about what this? It doesn't he have a 15-minute part, everybody? That we worked on today? You know, some people, you know, you be trying to treat them good. You say, well, let me help them out. But they don't know when they're being treated good. You know, that's how some people are. They do
I
not know.
appreciate Dr. Boy.
You're trying to look at. All right. I think I updated those grades too. Those who were.
How's the salad, Caleb? What type of dressing on it?
Let's see if we can get started here. Okay, so we're looking at the accounting cycle for managerial accounting. And this is why we reviewed it so intently, because we got to do it in financial accounting, because that's where we're going now. That same equation, asset equal liability plus stockholders' equity. And we said the starting point of the cycle was the determination of unit cost and selling price. Unit cost and selling price. So we spent a week on it so that you'd be able to do that. Now we're going to journalize entries. We're going to post them to the ledger. So when you make your journal entry, you're also posting to the ledger. You should be using the Excel working papers. So I think they're Excel working papers with that assignment. So that's what I want to see, one copy that turned in eventually by 11 o'clock. To make sure you're using Excel. And if you have to move those T accounts around some, go ahead and do it and put them in. That's just a template. So when you make a journal entry, you got to post it to the ledger. You got some new accounts, raw materials inventory, work in process inventory, and you've already seen work in raw materials inventory a little bit. Finished goods inventory, manufacturing overhead.
Wait, okay, so these four are new accounts that's not on our chart of accounts.
So on your manufacturing chart of accounts.
Do we have that?
Yep. So we have prepare the trial balance, prepare the financial statements, cost of goods manufacturing, cost of goods sold, income statement, statement of retained earnings, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows, and the closing entry. So we have to do all of that. That's our cycle. Product costs, materials, labor, and overhead, they go with the product. Period costs go with the period. So when we say it goes with the product, that means some of that cost will be in inventory and won't be charged to expense right away. All of these costs are charged to expense right away. And we spent all last week working on coming up with a POR and all of that good stuff, and looked at examples, and you all demonstrated to me today. You're learning from last week. Now, let's get into our managerial accounting journal entries. And the following journal entries occur in the managerial accounting process. And I put it in stages, with each stage is requiring stipulated journal entries. So in stage 1, the journal entries relate to the acquisition of raw materials, and it could be some others with starting the company, but the managerial one, you acquire the raw materials. In stage 2, you transfer costs to work in process account where the goods are produced. So in stage 2, that's the work in process stage where the goods are manufactured, and their journal entries to go with that stage. Stage 3, we transfer the cost of completed goods from work in process to finished goods. Stage 4, sale of the finished goods and transfer of costs from finished goods to cost of goods sold. So we know that when we sell an item, we have to sell it, and we also have to remove the cost and cost of goods sold. And we'll also be closing out over unapplied overhead in this stage. Stage 5, we pay selling administrative expenses plus dividends. This is what we learn in Accounting 1. So these are the 5 stages. In pictures, buying the raw materials. You look at your journal entry, we just debit raw materials and credit accounts payable, not cash. So whenever we buying inventory, the raw materials now, that's the entry.
Hey, Professor Boyd, are you recording?
Of course, you been sleeping, Cameron?
No, I was just making sure.
Let me see. Recording in process, it says. Okay, then in stage 2, we bring the raw materials together with the workers. So notice what you have here. You have raw materials. You have the workers putting it together. And then you have this big, I guess, working board here, working platform, which is the overhead. So the raw materials, the laborers, and the platform, and this building and everything else in here, that's the overhead. So all of that's occurring in stage 2. The first entry in stage 2 is we debit work in process and we credit raw materials inventory. So we bought the inventory, now we transferring it to work. So we don't just buy inventory and throw it in on the production floor. It has to be requisitioned out.
So
Then,
is work in progress the same thing as like overhead or something like?
no, we're getting to it. There are always 3 costs. That's the inventory, where we debit work in process and credit inventory. You would make this entry for as many raw materials you have. So if you got 5 raw materials, you got 5 of these entries. Entries bring in the raw materials. You got 1 entry to pay the workers, debit work in process, and we credit cash. Because most workers, like you all, when you're working, you want to be paid. So we have to debit work in process and credit cash. Then our third type of entry is we debit work in process and credit manufacturing overhead. We are estimating overhead. Remember, we talked about that. So notice a couple of things about the entries in stage 2. First of all, work in process is debited each time. Okay, debited work in process. So that's the first thing we're going to look at. The second thing we're going to look at is there's going to be an entry for raw materials, there's going to be an entry for direct labor, and there's going to be an entry for manufacturing overhead. And this is where you're going to be using that POR to come up with the amount of the overhead that you are estimating that is going to be charged to the product. Okay.
Wait,
Then when we finish the goods, we box them up to get them ready to sell. But see, we don't finish all the goods. Okay, so we're working on some items are going to be finished, some will not. So we'll have a work in process inventory for the items that are not completed. But for the items that are completed, we make the entry debiting finished goods inventory and crediting work in process inventory. Okay. And I've got these financial statements which sort of flow along with these stages. Then, since some of y'all like to eat so much, this is stage 5, sell the finished goods and transfer cost from finished goods to work in process. So when you're doing this stage, you debit account receivable cash and crediting sales, but then you debiting cost of goods sold and crediting finished goods when you sell the item. In this stage, we also work with our inventory. In stage 2, we make a journal entry debiting work in process inventory, 600,000. Let's just assume that's the case. So we debit work in process inventory and we credit manufacturing overhead. This entry is made in stage 2. So when we get to stage 4 here, we know what the actual costs are. We debit manufacturing overhead. We're going to credit accumulate depreciation cash for the other items. So once the actual costs come in, then we're going to debit manufacturing overhead and we're going to credit accumulate depreciation in cash. And I need a T account from somewhere. Where can I get a T account from? Cameron, where can I get a T account from?
Probably the Excel spreadsheet.
Bro, the Excel spreadsheet. I guess that'll be we'll come back to that. I'll come back to it, but that would be a source for us to get one. So we'll come back to overhead, talk about that a little bit later. But for now, the team that's working on this, I'll come back to you. But we estimated the overhead to be 600,000. Remember, I told you that I have to have my book ready in August. But all my overhead costs, taxes, some of the rents, utilities, those costs and depreciation are not made until the end of the year. I can't wait until then. I got to estimate that cost up front. Then this entry, a lot of these entries are going to occur on December 31st. So when I get ready to prepare financial statements, sometime I'll have a difference. And so let me just see. Let's see if this will paste in. It still doesn't quite want to paste in right. I guess we got most of it in there now. We'll get to this in a few minutes. Okay. In stage 5, we pay selling, administrative expenses, and dividends. And this is where our administration is in determining all the things that are happening and what the sales are and how much dividends we can pay. So these are the stage 5 entries. So here's Miss Kayla's our manufacturing chart of accounts.
Okay, so where is that at? Because I looked for it, definitely didn't find it.
Did anybody else look for it?
I was looking while you was talking. I was listening to, but I was looking
Turn
actively.
to page 285. So you should have been listening to me. Turn to page 285. See it?
The account numbers. Okay, do
No,
they or
y'all grown up from account numbers right now.
we what?
You don't have to worry about account numbers now.
Okay.
Okay. So here we have some information, and this just shows you what a cost of goods manufacturer statement looks like. And in the statement, it's always going to be the same thing. Raw materials, labor, overhead. So cost of goods manufacturer statement, what we were working with before, just getting that unit cost. And so when you get to the statement here, it's raw materials, labor, and overhead. Cost of goods sold is just a real simple statement. Beginning inventory at cost of goods manufactured. We adjust for the overhead and we get an adjusted cost of goods. So we'll get to that in an example and in our example. The income statement is fairly simple. Sales less cost of goods sold, gross margin. And of course you can tack on some closing interest and things like that at some point. So here's the same example. I think it should be the same example that's coming up in the text now. Let me do one thing. So what I have here is I've just done this in spreadsheet form to help you see what's going on. In stage 1, we acquire the raw materials and we make the journal entry debiting raw materials and crediting accounts payable. And we do that for every type of raw material we have. So the basic entry debit, raw materials, credit accounts payable. If it's ink, which we'll be doing a lot of, we're going to debit raw materials, ink, credit accounts payable. Then we're going to debit raw materials, paper, and credit accounts payable. But we would do that for all the raw materials we have. So this is what we're doing in stage 1. When we get to stage 2, we transfer the cost to production. And we have 3 types of journal entries. The first type is transferring in the raw materials. So we buy the raw materials, but then we requisition them in to the production process. And when we do that, we're going to debit work in process and credit raw materials. We're going to make this entry for each type of raw materials we have. Most times we'll be doing 2, ink and paper, but if we had more, we would do more. Then our second is we paying the labor. That's the second entry we make. And in the third entry, we're estimating what the overhead is. So we've got to estimate this overhead early on. So once again, these are the journal entries. Debit work in process, credit raw materials, debit work in process, credit cash, debit work in process, credit manufacturing overhead. And the way we get this number is we're going to debit the labor hours times the POR. Remember, we came up with a POR, a percentage, the per hour overhead rate. So when we get ready to put that overhead in, we're going to look at the labor hours that we paid the laborers here, and we're going to multiply that by the POR, and that's how we get that number. So it is helpful if the POR is calculated correctly. Okay, that is helpful. That's stage 2. Then we get to stage 3, which is the transfer of completed items to finished goods. That's just one entry. So I was looking out for team 4. I just gave them one entry. And all I got to do is to debit finished goods and credit work in process. So I gave them one little entry to work on: debit finished goods, credit work in process. So once we have all of our costs done, then we transfer them to finished goods. Then in stage 4, we selling the finished goods. And we debiting cash or account receivable, and we crediting sales, and we debiting cost of goods sold, and we crediting finished goods. Any questions so far? Then in stage 5, did I get in my way of stage 5? I don't think I put anything up for stage 5 because that's just making the basic journal entries, those 22 types that we learned from Principles 1. So stage 1, I think it was 22.
So just to be clear, stage 1 is what we've already been doing last week.
231.
That's stage 1.
Well, no. In stage 1, we were last week, we weren't at stage 1. We were getting ready to go
So
into
is stage 1 what we've been learning today? Or like is it a combination of like the job order costing? Like what essentially is it?
What did I tell you was the bottom line thing that you were getting when we worked this problem? I told you we needed what? 3 numbers.
The material, meaning the labor, materials, and overhead. Wait.
No. I tell you that what we've been doing so far is done to get the estimated unit cost, which we don't work with, but the selling price and the predetermined overhead rate. So what you have been doing is coming up with these numbers: the selling price and the predetermined overhead rate. That predetermined overhead rate is going to come into play in stage 2 when you come up with the estimated overhead. So that's where that rate comes into play. The selling price is going to come into play when you sell an item. We're going to sell so many. Well, if you're selling the items, you're going to need a selling price. So that selling price, that was a team 5 determined for us, that selling price they got, that's the number that we're going to use in stage 4 when we get ready to sell items. That's what we've done so far. We're getting ready But I spend that week on this. So you think we're done? Because if you got some mistakes here, if your unit cost that you estimated wrong, then your selling price is wrong. So your sales are going to be incorrect. And then the selling expenses sometimes are a percentage of sales. Then if your POR is incorrect, team 5, if the POR is incorrect, then this journal entry is incorrect. Okay? So when this journal entry is incorrect, then this journal entry is incorrect. Well, this journal entry is incorrect, then this journal entry is incorrect. So if your POR is incorrect, in terms of that rate you get, the debit to work in process manufacturing overhead is incorrect. Because it is incorrect, the transfer to finished goods, debiting finished goods and work in process, is incorrect. Then, because the finished goods number is incorrect, then the cost of goods sold number is incorrect. So because so many things will be incorrect, if you mess up, I spent a week on it. And then what I wanted to determine today, so it was not the points that were important, but I need to see where you all are. What's day? Tuesday, right? Okay. So I'll see where we are. And 4 o'clock on Friday is approaching. So we may have to finish that problem on Friday, because I only had 6 or 7 in there, because eventually the problem that we're working as a class, sometime next week, probably next Thursday, each team will work one by themselves. So each team's gonna work one by themselves. And then for the midterm, each individual in here works one by themselves. So we're gonna have to make up our time missed. And some of y'all been absent anyway. So I really, but we've got to not so much making the time up, but we spent a week on something, did some detailed work on it, and if you didn't get that, then you got to get it. Then we go to the next chapter. There are 4 books, and everybody got a book. So everybody in the next chapter is doing this and putting it together. So if you think about 4 books, then all of this got to be done 4 times. Okay? So we got to so what we did last week helps us to get some stuff correct as we go through. So that's what we did last week, Kayla. Got it? Not
Yes,
quite.
I got
Okay.
you.
You
Sure.
sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Hey,
let's do that.
real quick, I just put the teams in the group me right now, so there won't be no confusion. Because I know the link on Blackboard that says teams is wrong right now, so I just make sure I insert it in the group me so y'all can look and see what team y'all on, so everybody can do their part. Yeah.
So with everybody doing a part, nobody has to do that much. on one hand, but at the end of the day, you got to know all of it. But to start it off, we having everybody do a part. Okay? Then each team will do a problem. And then after that, at the midterm, each individual does one, which will be a little simpler. Okay. Now, we made an entry, debiting work in process and crediting manufacturing overhead. Okay, we made that entry. And so, if I had a T account for manufacturing overhead, when we make the entry in stage 3 to estimate, stage 2, excuse me, to estimate the overhead, we debit work in process and we credit manufacturing overhead. So my T account has a credit in it for the estimated overhead of 600,000. Okay. But then we get the actual cost at the end of the year: depreciation, utilities, supplies, rents, and taxes. And so it ends up that the expenses were 610. Accumulate depreciation credit to 300, cash credit for the other one. So we know cash is not a cash, depreciation is not a cash expenditure. These other items are. And so once that happens then, and we make that entry, we now have a debit in manufacturing overhead for 600,000, 610,000, and a credit for 600,000. So this is a temporary holding account. So what's happening is we put into the cost of the item 600,000. Okay, we said that going into work in process, which is the cost of the item, eventually going to finished goods, eventually going to cost of goods sold, 600,000. Well, it should have been 610,000. Okay, it should have been 610. And so we're going to make a journal entry. See if it's in here. I'll just put it in here. We're going to make a journal entry now to debit cost of goods sold, COGS, space over a little bit, for 10,000. And we're going to make a journal entry where we're going to credit MOH for 10,000. So we're getting rid of the unapplied overhead. We didn't put enough in there. And now when we make this posting of $10,000, the account zeroes out. So all you got to know is when you're dealing with over and unapplied overhead, because you estimating at 600, but the actual cost is 610. You're just not going to be right. You want to be close. And so once I determine what the overhead is at the end of the year, I debit cost of goods sold and credit manufacturing overhead, and I close out this clearing account, a temporary account, when I get my actual cost in. And this entry is reversed if you didn't have enough money in there. So we had a situation where we had the actual costs were $5.95. So we had only $5.95, but we estimated 600,000. Then this entry reverses, and we debit MOH for 5,000. And we're going to credit COGS, COGS.
Hey, Professor Boyd. Maybe a lot to ask right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask anyway. Would it be too much if you were to take one of those nice problems out of your textbook and then use the template that you expect us to use and like do an example yourself from start to finish?
Well, then I would be the only one who know how to do it.
Well,
No, I think a lot
you're
of us
the
would
only one
learn
that
that
know how
way.
to do it right now. So,
I
and
did
we want to learn how to do it.
that's a sign to do this. Okay, so let's just see then. I'll help y'all out a little bit.
Because sometimes you just need a good example, and it's
You need a
hard
good
to piece
example.
together some stuff. I would like to see it from start to finish how you expect for it to be done, so we can do it to your expectations. How about that?
I'm good at that. Well, what I'll do, I'll help y'all a little bit on your problem. So let's put team 5 to work then. I mean, we'll work this one together. So if you got a problem, then you just, with your part, then you come up with it. So team 5, only team 5 is working now. Team 5, come up with this for me. Estimated unit cost, estimated selling price, predetermined overhead. So team 5 is working on this. Okay?
Damn, right when I got something to eat.
So team 5, can you all handle this?
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Go through that template that on the exam you just had and do that. Okay? I'm just not sure how much we get if I just work the problem all the way through. I mean, if you all,
We get a whole
A
lot
lot
because
more
you're
than
the
we're getting
expert.
now is the answer to that
A
question.
lot more. That's why we need you to do it, because a lot of people are like visual learners. Like when they see an example, they can like apply it to like every other thing. The kind of stick,
well,
That's how I am.
we'll do a combination of it then. We will visual learn it together. Okay, so we'll do it. So I'll work this one with you. And I'll get a third of the credit. Okay. All right, so working together then, all right, everybody work on this then. We want team 5 to have it. But we'll start here. This is the starting point. So everybody should be able to do this part, right? I don't need to demonstrate this part, right?
Yeah, can you scroll back up so we can get the assumptions, please?
That is
Thank you.
assumption. So we want team 5 team 5 gives us the first answer. Now, if there are different answers, we'll look at it. But team 5, you all are on the clock.
He also already posted this file on Blackboard.
I think it's an assignments. So you all are going to need to update your passwords. Okay? If there's an issue, then Kayla will get it to you. Right, Kayla?
Okay, sure.
If they can't find it, rather than me having to email to everybody, since I'm doing all this other work for you all, and team 3, y'all be working. If we don't have engagement, if you're just watching, most people are not going to get it, okay? This part of it, I'm not going to do for you all. There should be enough of y'all in here, y'all can get this. And you only got one raw material. Oh, they're taking so long trying to fill out a form. How much is the ink?
It's not encouraging, Professor Boyd. We're working on it, okay? Okay.
But I don't want, sometimes, we have a template, but sometimes, to really learn, you got to think outside that template. So the ink is 20 plus the labor is what? 12 plus the overhead. So we need the overhead. So we have templates and everything, but sometimes you want to say, well, hey, I can go ahead and knock this out. So how much is the unit overhead cost going to be? Everybody see the 20 and the 12, correct?
Yes.
So what's the unit overhead cost, Chase? You can tell me you're going to be an A+ student too?
Well, that's the goal.
Well, you sure not talking like you were last week.
Hold on, I'm trying to figure it out right now.
So sometime I handicap y'all by giving y'all templates. What's POR, Dawkins?
Oh shit, my bad.
Just fine, you got it?
You okay? Huh? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
The
You said what's the what?
POR.
The POR?
But Josiah,
20 plus what?
I just seen if you had it yet, that's all.
Can you scroll back up? I feel like I'm missing something right now.
No, I said 12 because you asked.
Okay.
I only gave one raw material in the problem. See, so y'all trying to put some of y'all trying to put 2 raw materials in.
Activity.
Isn't it the total direct labor supposed to be 36?
You're right. Thank you. Who's that?
See, that
Me?
my hair messing up.
Bonus points.
Yes, sir.
Nah, but the PRR is 12.
One says
Yeah,
POR.
600,000 divided by is 12.
It's POR 12.
The selling price is 20 times.
Wait a minute.
That's like 60.
Let's come back.
Isn't the
Wait,
POR 4?
PRR? I got 4.
Yeah, I got 4 too.
Oh,
Your
shit.
answer
I'm
is
tripping.
4. Because we would have done what? We would have said that it takes
60,000.
3 hours.
Oh,
It takes 3 hours. Okay, so it takes 3 hours to make it. So we say 3 times what?
50,000.
50,000.
Yes, sir. And then you would get that's 150,000.
So this will be so our hours is 150,000.
And then you would do the total estimate overhead divided by 150,000.
It's correct. 600 divided by 150 gives you 4.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
when you're
then
learning this now, when you're learning something, you don't have to use that template if you really understand it. Then we know that what? The overhead costs, the unit overhead costs are going to be what?
12,
How we get 12?
4
3,
times 3.
right, 12. So when we add these up, we get what?
68.
Yeah, 68.
So what's our selling price?
Uh,
68 times 3, 140.
yeah.
How much?
204.
204. So that's the first part of the problem. So hopefully you see why I gave it a little quiz. And hopefully you see some of your, see now. So that's the first part. So I'd rather work the problem this way, with us doing it together rather than me just showing you. All right, let's go to stage 1. Team 3, you got your journal entries made? Where can I find some journal entries?
Hey, so that purchase 110,000 ink cartridges at 10 is at 10 each, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna clear these out. See if I can delete this stuff. Uh, I have a problem with these journal entries. Let me just have to go slow. So what's our first journal entry going to be?
If you're investing, one corporate investing $50,000, common stock, and okay, so when you invest, like,
Oh,
so
don't create anything. Don't create anything. Keep it simple.
okay, so it's common stock and cash.
That's right. So first journal entry with debit and common stock. And we're crediting cash. How much?
It says $50,000.
$50,000. Can everybody make that entry?
Yeah.
Can you make this entry?
Wait, I thought you debit cash.
Yes.
Just saying.
I ain't say what particular order, Professor Boy, so you over here messing everybody up too.
Right. You just missing. You messing everybody up.
All right. Oh, I don't know why this thing is acting up. Won't let me do it the slow way. What's our next journal entry? What did we do?
The next one says we purchased $800,000 in equipment on note. So
What'd you
we're
do
going.
that? Y'all made an entry like that before?
But wouldn't you debit equipment and then credit notes payable?
Sounds good to me. How much was that for? 800,000. So see why I don't need to work the whole problem? A
Well,
lot of it,
okay, all right.
you got to do some of the calculations. All right, what's the next thing we do now? Getting into some manufacturing accounting now. What do we do?
It says purchase 110,000 ink cartridges at $10. So you would debit inventory and credit accounts payable, right?
So we're gonna debit raw materials, and we can't just say inventory anymore. Raw materials, ink, and we're gonna credit. So we set accounts payable. And how much was it?
It was 1,100,000
But why did we buy 1,100,000?
because it says you purchased 110,000 ink and it says at $10. So that's why I multiplied it.
Okay. So any question with that journal entry? So we finished with stage one. Anybody got any problem with stage one?
Nah, stage one. Okay, cool.
All right, let's go to stage two. What's happening in stage two of those journal entries?
Oh,
It's just like a template.
trying to find stage two. Oh,
But who's responsible for stage 2?
Well, according to what you put on here, it says multiple teams, like team 7 and 9.
Are y'all coming 7 and 9? So what's the first thing happen? Should say something.
Okay. Well, it
You
says
100,000 ink cartridges to work in process.
So wouldn't you debit work in process and then credit raw materials inventory or ink in this case?
Sounds good to me. So we're going to debit work in process. Now we're going to credit raw materials ink. And how much did we transfer in?
100,000 ink cartridges. But if it was at $10, then it'd just be $1 million, right?
So notice we buy more ink cartridges than we need in case we mess up some of the ink. So we don't want production to stop. So we're in stage 2. So that's the first entry. So we go from transaction type to stages. One, 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 one. Now we're in 2 now, aren't we? What's our next entry in stage 2?
Like actual direct labor hours were 152,000.
So notice now, the actual labor hours were 152. Now we may have thought they're going to be something else, but now the actual labor hours is 152. So some of the workers got sick. Some of them took a holiday, and some of them talked on their cell phones. So it took them longer, more hours than they were supposed to take. How many hours were they supposed to take?
Um,
So it's 3 hours per book. So they should have taken what, 150,000 hours, right?
yeah, so they're 2,000 hours over.
Mm-hmm. But what if you tried not to pay them?
I mean, you still got to pay them, but
Okay, so what's our journal entry going to be?
You debit work in what was it?
Work in process.
Yeah, work in process, and then you credit cash, or it'd be like direct labor.
Cash. The labor is in the work, this is work in process, raw materials, you got a tier count. It's got some items in it. So workers want cash, most of them want cash. So how much we have to pay those folks? It's 2,000 times 10.
yeah, so like $1,520,000.
Mm-hmm. So notice we do a lot of calculations ourselves. Nobody not gonna be giving you the numbers.
Hey, so question about that. Okay, so I see on your chart of accounts you have work in process inventory. Is that the same one we using the same one?
Mm-hmm.
So because this one has to do with labor, so there's not another one like work in process labor is all gonna be under work in process inventory.
Yep. The
Okay,
people making those cars on the assembly line. The question is how much the car costs, right?
yeah.
The car's gonna have raw materials in it, it's gonna have labor in it, and it's gonna have overhead. But you got to determine the cost of the car. So you can put the manufacturer's cost on it and the selling price. Isn't that what happened with cars? So they'll have separate things. They want one cost for the car. And when that car is made, it's in work in process, and all the costs are being accumulated in the work in process account. What's our final journal entry we got to make?
Applied manufacturing overhead. Labor rate. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what that. I feel like I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
What other rate do we have?
Applied manufacturing overhead at predetermined. So we use the POR.
Cameron? Okay, so
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
predetermined overhead rate. I guess I better put a big POR in here.
No cap, it would help.
It took me a minute to get it. I'm
It
just
did me too. I was like, what is that?
So let me put in here POR with me X times the labor hours. Can y'all see it now?
Yeah.
It's actual labor hours, not estimated. So
That's right.
specify.
Actually, that's a good point. Let me put that in here too. I'd be putting in the. So once you start working, you see, we had estimates and everything. Somebody not doing their job. So what's that journal entry going to be since y'all can see this now?
You
okay.
debit work in process and you credit manufacturing overhead.
So we're going to debit work in process again and credit minimum wage. And how much is that going to be?
608,000.
Wait, how'd you get that?
The POR is 4 times actual work hours, 152,000.
Oh, okay, got you. Thank you, bro.
So 4 times 152, I'm assuming. 152 times 4. How much that was?
608,000.
Okay. 608, comma 000. And now you all need to be, so I made them. I'm not going to post them to the ledger, all right? All right. So where are we now?
That was the end of stage 2.
So we finished stage 2. So what we ready for now?
Stage
Stage
3.
Okay. Who assigned stage 3?
Hey. Okay. All right. So it says completed 40,000 books. And then it says record transfer of 4,000 units to finished foods. Wait, we're doing books of food.
Like
See, already threw me off. Okay.
Good. I think this could be good. Yeah, I know you like food a lot, so you work with food. So
I feel like you're trying to play me, but we're gonna move on. We'll talk about that later. Okay. 100% of labor and manufacturing overhead transferred to finished goods. Okay.
give me accounts first. Give me some accounts first.
Shoot. Okay.
What
Give
you
me a
gonna tell?
second. So, I'm not as proficient as I should be on this. I gotta look at it. I gotta look at the book before I can just give you an answer because I don't know off the top of my head right now. Okay, so we're gonna debit finished goods inventory,
Yep.
and then we're going for finished good inventory. So 40,000 units. How much was the unit cost?
Let's get the counts in for what's your debiting?
Finished goods inventory.
Inventory. What you gonna credit?
Work in process inventory.
Okay. Now I got to get an amount.
Okay, so wait a minute. Gotta pull it back up. Okay, so I don't have it written down because I'm gonna go back later and redo this whole thing myself anyway. But how much was the unit cost, like per unit? Can you go back up? I know you filled it in up there somewhere.
Way up here.
Okay, so the unit cost is 68. So if we sold 40,000 of those, we gotta do 40,000 times 68, right?
What does that
Get
word
it?
say?
Huh?
What is that? What's in red?
Estimated
Yeah.
unit cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you might be estimating the cost of that food, but you're gonna pay for what it comes in at, right?
Okay, so what did it come in at then? Am I
Oh,
supposed to know that?
that's so we can go down here at the tier account and look and see what happened. I have some tier accounts down here. In work in process right now, we have a debit of how much? Since you got, how much is the debit for the raw materials?
1 million.
1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And we're supposed to be making how many units?
Um,
50,000.
We'll make 50,000. Those rascals only made what?
we only made 40,000.
So the cost came in for $1 million. Going over to finished goods is only going to be 40,000. How much was, so this is the materials. How much was the labor?
The labor,
How much is in that journal entry? I'm making
yeah, see, so I gotta do this again. Yes, now I'm confused.
1,520,000 and 608. It's $1 million. We got 608.
So I need to do all this in order to figure out how to do the journal entry for real.
Say that again.
I said I have to go through this whole T account process in order to figure out this journal entry.
Probably. I tell you, nobody just giving you the numbers.
Well, okay.
So you got to take.
Oh, so what you're saying is before we had the estimated labor and material and overhead. And then when we actually put the work in, and now we got the actual numbers. So now that we actually sold 40,000 units, we got to go back and do the labor, material, and overhead again and come up with a new number for the actual cost.
Mm-hmm. So you only completed 40,000. So the way we're doing the overhead in this case,
Can I get a confirmation? Thought I was on to something.
all the labor's got to go out. I'm gonna put a credit over here. They've been paid. Their money got to go on the 40,000 that's complete. All the overheads got to go. Because it goes right along with it. But now for the paper, the raw materials, all of it doesn't go. Only 80% of it goes because the rest of the paper is left here. So the workers didn't work, overhead's been incurred, but there's some paper left behind. So we only want to use 4/5 or 80% of the paper to go out.
So 800,000.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just showing you the calculation, but when we add these three numbers together, how much is it?
Mm, like 2,928,000.
2 million what?
928,000.
928.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how much we're transferring out. And how much did we have in here in the first place? We add these numbers up, how much is it?
It's gonna be 3,128,000.
3 million. So how much is left in the account?
200,000.
Okay. What does that 200,000 represent?
The materials that we didn't use.
That's correct. This is how we're calculating it. And this, sometimes we change it. Sometimes we use a percentage of everything. Right now, we're transferring out all the labor, all the overhead, and a portion of the raw materials of the part that's used. And we got 200,000 left in this account. Let's go back to raw materials. How much raw materials did we buy? 1,100,000?
Yeah.
And we transferred out 1 million. So how much was the balance in the raw materials?
100,000.
Okay, so we're gonna stop here. 1241. Y'all working me so hard.